Hey everyone, this is Rene from Tippy.com. Welcome to our weekly show that focuses on everything iPhone, from news and how-tos to app and accessory reviews. This is iPhone Live. It's Wednesday, December 7th, and joining me tonight is the host of iPad Live, ZenandTech.tv, Girls Gone Gadgets, and I think half the show's on the internet by now. Georgia, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired, actually. So, yeah, I just came from work, but yeah, I'm doing really well.
Nice.
I'm excited for today's show.
As well you should be, because we have a very special guest. We have the editor of the unofficial Apple weblog, TUAW, to those in the know, Michael Rose. How are you, Mike?
I'm great, Rene. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Georgia, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, but it is our pleasure. We are longtime fans of your work, and it is great to have you on what looks to be a pretty jam-packed week. I thought we'd have a break before all the big shows started in January, Mike. And
I know. And we were talking about this on our show Sunday night. The fact is that you do end up in sort of the ionization blackout of tech news for a good chunk of December because you're waiting for those CES introductions, people are on vacation. But a lot of things happening, and not all sort of ridiculous made up stories, but actually some real stories out there over the past couple of weeks.
That was a Carrier IQ reference, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that you said not made up stories.
Well, there were some, I think that some that got perhaps a little bit more oxygen than they would have at a busier time of year. Let's just put it that way.
I don't think we got a break this year because, August is supposed to be slow, but there was no new iPhone. So we got just more iPhone rumors and Google buying people, and we need a vacation.
No, we do need a vacation. It's true.
So we have a little bit of meta to cover just before we start. We did Iterate 12 on Monday with Gideon Maheu, and I know that you know him very well, Mike. He is awesome on a podcast.
He is the best guest you can get.
And
besides yourself.
I'm not even including myself. He's just the best guest you can get. Forget me.
He starts off better. He has this trick. He starts off just low selling. Like he's like, yeah, we did these little games like Ramp Champ and maybe you heard of Astronaut, and then like he gets you warmed up. Then he's like, yeah, when we were doing the icons for Windows and for Mac System 8, and we made all the stuff in Vista. Like he doesn't give you it's 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Yes, it's true.
Awesome, guy. If you haven't already listened to that, Georgia, you did Zen and Tech 26 on self-esteem, so I feel better about hosting this show now. Thank you.
I'm feeling a little better about showing up, and Mike already said that he's doing great, so he has positive self-esteem already.
Nice.
It's true.
Nowhere to go but down. Thanks, no.
That's okay. It's a good place to be. It's a good place to ever reach. So
we started a new weekly column, the Weekly Mod, with Ali Kazmuha. She runs her own.
Love this. Love it. Like, I have to say, I loved watching Ali do it. I was spellbound watching her replace an iPhone for battery. Really cool. Like, really cool. Even if you don't ever plan to do this, check it out. It was awesome.
She runs her own shop called Pixel Fix, which is not a Superman villain. It's actually the name of a shop that she runs, and she repairs iPhones day in, day out. And she's going to be doing a series of kind of do-it-yourself stuff for us, which kind of defeats the purpose of her having a shop. So hopefully people will still go there after they've watched the videos. But it's nice of her anyway.
Well, looking at some of the things that she says can go wrong when you would do this yourself, like for some of the greater ones, I'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna pass
just
on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's worth how much is your time worth, and how much is the fact that you might cause your device to explode worth? I mean, really think it through. Yeah.
I'm like Tim Allen. I would be like opening the thing up, and it would not go well.
And Sock says that they only charge $35 including the battery.
Yeah, it's a good
holy hell.
That's a great deal.
Like, comparing how good I would fix my own battery and the risk that would take. Having my phone later melt or trying to supercharge my phone, it wouldn't be pretty. But
you are on a mod, aren't you?
I am. I'm so stoked is not even the word. And I have 2 mods actually here. So from iFixit, we ended up getting, here we go. I'm opening it up. I'm so excited. A clear backing for my phone. So yes, I'm going to void my warranty for
Your
just
warranty is
the-
over. It's an
Yeah,
iPhone.
what warranty?
Mike,
what warranty? What warranty? Who cares? So here we go. I'm going to show it off.
Just so that Mike is up to speed, Georgia has not yet upgraded to an iPhone 4S. She is shaming the entire community.
Well, not everyone has to. Somebody has to support people who are on the previous generation and make them feel comfortable. That's important stuff.
That's exactly why I'm doing it, Mike. I'm so happy that you understood that.
It's all about the self-esteem and keeping them.
It's all about the self-esteem. So here we go.
Steamy.
Clear backing. I'm going to
Nice.
test out that baby, which will be cool because then I can see the battery that I will never change.
You can see little creatures running around inside, keeping the thing working.
And wonderful thing is that the kit includes, so you get with this, if you buy the kit, they give you the iPhone 4 pentalobe screwdriver, actually 4 Phillips screws, and then so you can change it. You can take out your screwdriver and the screws, and you can replace them so that you can, choose to mod your phone.
Are you going to do it live on the show?
Maybe I will. That might, if I can wait that long.
She did Jailbreak live on the show. It was one of our best episodes ever.
Oh, wow. Man. Do you have to go back to that? Really?
No, it was a good show. It made everyone feel comfortable doing it.
DF you, Rene. And then I also got from Unusual. You can take a look here. They have an amazing site that you can choose whatever image you want to put on the back of your glass, and they will print it and give it to you, and it's like $30. It's like nothing. And I'm opening it first time here. I just got it, and let's take a look at what I chose.
I don't think I'd ever mod my iPhone. I'm the kind of guy who's afraid. I think the minute I mod it, it would...
Wait, look at what I'm getting for my back plate. This is glass.
Okay. Oh.
Ooh.
Isn't that sweet? It's on wood. I got the retro Apple Simple, and it's really cheap. And they also come with the 2 sets of screwdrivers. They have all kinds of things.
You didn't get the glowing Apple logo? I thought you would definitely go all in on that.
Oh, I keep on contact. I am the person that harasses the people that are doing the glowing Apple logo. I contact them every 3 weeks. Like, when is it? When is it going to be? I want to have it. Why don't I have it already?
I don't care if it gives me toxic poisoning. I just want it.
Yeah, I don't care if it melts my iPhone. I just want to have my glowing back iPhone. So this baby I'm going to be putting on as well. And then I have the clear one.
Nice.
And we'll have them both up. I'm so excited.
And you'll report back on your success level?
You say that as if
I see you with an iPhone 4S next week, we'll have our answer?
Yeah, exactly. You'll know exactly why I've got the iPhone 4S. The cool thing, by the way, about at iFix is that they also give you a thirst bag. So this is for if you drop your phone in water or the toilet.
That's a great idea.
They give you this bag. It was, I don't know if this is a promotion or special, why, because it just came with it. You open up the bag, you shake off any liquid that you already have. You put the device into the bag and reseal it. Turn it off if it's on. Okay? If your phone is on.
If it's on and it's wet, something weird is going on.
Yeah, you're already probably dead in the water if it's on and it's wet. Or you pulled it out fast enough that you did not actually have any seepage as of yet, but it'll be soon. Take off any excess water right away, then stick it into the bag. Wait 24 to, I would actually say 48 hours, but if 24 hours is what they say. Cross your fingers. Cute. They put that as the things. Then you remove it and turn it on. And so, try to keep this in a safe place so you can use it immediately. And they also come with some screen protectors.
Nice.
Love putting the screen protectors on.
I'm going to interrupt our usual flow because Mike reported right before the show started that On Live might be going live, Mike?
Yeah, I believe the embargo is up. So if you look at the front page of TUAW right now, you'll see the On Live iPad app has been announced. And I don't know if people know what On Live is. It's basically streaming gaming, which is an odd thought. But just like Netflix or Hulu will stream video programming to your computer or to your device, your iPad or your iPhone, this is a service that streams a video game, Batman Arkham City, Assassin's Creed, L.A. Noire, streams it to your device and sends the control events back to the server, which in this case is just a PC running the game. So rather than having to have an Xbox or a PC to play these console experience or high-end PC games, you use OnLive on a pretty thin client on your computer, or you use their little set-top box, mini set-top box. They have been hinting very strongly for a long time that they were going to have tablet and phone clients as well. They've just announced that the iPad and the Android tablet client will be out this week. And Mike Schramm's been playing it for 2 days. He says it's unbelievable. Their spec says you only need about a 2 megabit pipe in order to make it work. And the experience is as if you were as if you were using an Xbox or a PS3 and playing these games, but you're doing it on your iPad. In fact, the company is even selling a $49 wireless controller, Xbox-style controller, that will work with your iPad. So you can be sitting there in your easy chair with your controller playing these games.
It's the future.
It is.
Wow.
We are in fact living in the future. And Mike did a nice little video of it. It's a bit blurry, but you get the idea. Some games are not really playable. Some games that have complex control metaphors won't work with the touchscreen. Some games will work with the touchscreen, but some of the controls kind of get in the way. Other games, the Rockstar games, for example, like LA Noire, have actually been modified to work with touch controls.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really, really interesting. And the OnLive guys have been working with their client, their desktop client, for about a year now, and this is the next generation. And I haven't had the chance to try it yet. Mike did say it was really, really impressive. So probably something people are going to want to check out.
I've met Mike at several of the gaming shows and several of the shows that just have gaming elements, and he knows his stuff. So if he recommends it, I'm guessing it's really solid.
It appears to be, and I mean, you have to wonder what that's going to do both to the iOS gaming market and also to the console market, because a lot of these games are hitting the PC at the same time that they're hitting the PS3 and the Xbox, and there doesn't seem to be an overwhelming reason you couldn't use a platform like this to do it, but expanding it to the iPad is going to be amazing. It also works great on older devices. It works fine on the iPad 1. It works fine on the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 3GS, the previous gen iPod Touch, because it's not actually doing any of the 3D locally. It's all happening in the cloud, which is making a painting by fax to me. It just seems insane that you would actually try to do this for a successful gaming solution, but apparently it works really well. So
that's because we come from the age of latency, Mike. Like, we would never imagine there'd be a connection that was solid enough that the packet loss wouldn't ruin the experience.
The age of jitter.
Yes. I can't even send a file from one room to another, never mind a high-end gaming. What's going to happen? Someone's going to frag me because I lost 3 milliseconds of packet time.
Yeah, but that actually does that would kill me. That would, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how multiplayer is going to work, because there may in fact be a little bit of round trip lag, but it doesn't seem.
For me, I need all of the time though. For game, I need to make sure that I have all the time I can.
If just to get everyone on the same page here, so all she wants to do is kill other players, and if she's playing a one-person game, the enjoyment factor is not as prevalent for her.
Yeah, it was hard to play cut the rope.
Yeah. Die, nom nom, die.
He was one little hungry nom nom.
That poor creature.
I know.
But but that's been the dream for so long. Like Larry Ellison spoke about that. Scott McNeely. Everyone had this dream of the thin, sitting by your poolside, running your massive server complex on a tiny little device. I mean, Captain Picard had one of these. I want to start yelling out, "Jane, get me off this crazy thing." It just feels like we're finally there.
Yeah,
we're getting there. We're getting there. The amount of speed of which technology is catching up with what my dreams of what technology could be. We are in the Star Trek, generation. This is pretty sweet.
We were talking about that on Saturday too, and the fact that between the iPad and Siri and the iPhone itself, we now have caught up with the original series, and we're making a move on next generation in terms of the technology the Star Trek technology we've deployed. Everybody's got a pad. Everybody's reading their news and controlling their thermostats from their pad. Now we're talking to our phones, just like Commander Scott wanted to do when he was,
Computer.
when he was trying to talk to the original Mac. Because, of course, the guy in the aluminum factory is saying, no one talks to a computer. It's 1985. Yeah. Why would you do that? And this guy from, 2436 is saying, why wouldn't you talk to a computer? How else would you work with it? So in the space of about 4 years, we've sort of jumped about 400 years in terms of technological sophistication.
Exactly. And it's just going to get faster. Minority Report, here we come.
That's not far away.
Well, it's
no,
funny.
No, it's not. Hook up that Connect, all of the patents that everyone's buying up.
Yep.
It's there. It's absolutely there. Like I went upstairs, my husband's talking down to his computer, change page, move page. It's a little bit of a slow system, but
it's coming.
Yeah. And then I was talking at the same time just to mess with it to see how much it would read. I'm like, page forward, page back, end program, shut down. But it's really yes. No, I enjoy it too. I would do that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because in the chat room, Master is just saying that Xbox got a big update, and Microsoft is working really hard on their voice recognition technology and their motion gesture support. And I like the fact that we're racing towards this, that there's a lot of players in this game, because it makes me feel like everyone has to be really agile. We don't just have one lazy giant corporation anymore that's in charge of all of our innovation.
Well, what happened is that when they found out that, Apple's making a TV now, like everyone, Microsoft's making Xbox TV, like everyone's making a TV now. It's pushed everyone. They don't want to be left behind like they were for, if I may say, though, it's not iPhone Live. It's not iPad Live, but they don't want to be left behind like they were for the iPads. So
yeah,
it's going to be very, very interesting. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
If you ran Apple, Mike, would you be tempted to start leaking stuff like we're working on a toaster just to watch the reactions?
If you think back to the pre-iPad introduction window, when everyone knew Apple was working on a tablet, but nothing had been announced yet, and we started hearing that Samsung and Dell and Asus and a lot of these manufacturers had tablet prototypes in the lab, but were not going anywhere near that market until they saw what Apple was going to do. I think that's happening to to the Google TV 2.0, to a lot of the set-top box guys. It's the same sort of holding your breath, like what's going to happen? Exactly? What sort of disruptive innovation is going to turn my industry upside down? Because I think anyone, you could go to any TV manufacturer and listen and say, well, we're really not worried about Apple. I mean, we have incredible economies of scale, and we understand this market. This is a commodity market, and nobody's going to come in and disrupt us. And then you hold a finger up at them and say, 3 letters, RIM, RIM, and then watch the sweat start pouring down, like in that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where the guy who's pretending to be I'm forgetting all my sci-fi. The one on Mars with Sharon Stone.
Total Recall.
Total Recall. Oh, that's such a good movie.
The other one based on the Philip K. Dick short story. That one shot where the guy supposedly is part of the illusion, but then he sees the drop of sweat pouring.
Yes,
it's like, he's real.
The drop of sweat was actually an illusion.
Please don't let him make a toothbrush. Oh well. Please don't let him make a toothbrush.
No spoilers.
They didn't think that far ahead, right?
We should have put a big spoiler alert on.
If you haven't watched Total Recall it's like Buffy. If you haven't watched that by now, it's fair game.
Yeah, if it's on Netflix, forget it. No spoilers allowed. But that's the position the TV manufacturers have to be in. And actually, I was meeting today with some people from a major internet search and taxonomy company that shall remain nameless but has an exclamation point in its name. And the last question the guy asked me on the way out is, so Apple TV, what's the deal? Everyone wants to know. Yeah. Everybody wants to know. And I think if I were, to go back to the original question, if I were Tim Cook, I would be extremely quiet about what markets I was going to go into. I would simply allow myself to be seen meeting with suppliers in, various industries.
Like rutabaga farmers, anything you can think of.
Well, the funniest thing is that you might, as you said, Rene, start a false rumor and say, we're building, the new type of toaster. But then what if they really do it and they make this amazing toaster that everyone is buying? You'd be like, oh man, like really, we should have actually done it. So either way you could lose.
Either way,
but
consumer.
yeah.
So you guys also had a great post. We were talking about Siri before, and it was kind of weird. Like there's this phenomena that happens with Apple. It happens with every company, but people are stupider when it comes to Apple. It's like Apple releases something. The general blog, there's a difference between niche bloggers and general bloggers. And the general bloggers will go, it's the best thing on the world. A week later, they'll say it's terrible. I guess these things follow page hits or something. There's some magic formula that I don't understand for these. But it's silly season on Siri right now. And as much as everyone was trumpeting it and showing it off, they're bashing it. And I think the most ridiculous one was this claim, and maybe you can explain this to us, Mike, is that Siri was pro-life.
Yeah, and it's a touchy subject, and it's really it's kind of unfortunate that it blew out of I don't want to say out of proportion, that it blew out into the less sophisticated reporting that was dealing with it. Basically, a particular reproductive rights blog or a reproductive rights blogger had gotten a couple reports from people that she knew saying, "Hey, when I search for contraception services or abortion services or other things, I'm not getting the right results, or the results I'm getting don't make sense." Now, let's jump back and think for a second. Okay, if you are really looking for a place to get reproductive health services, in particular, if you're looking for a place to get an abortion, are you asking Siri? Is this something that people are actually doing, or was this just a demo? Was it a test? So, leaving that aside, we assume, for the sake of this process, that this person actually exists, who is using Siri to find these resources. What was happening in some cases is that places weren't showing up. In other cases, and really the most sort of weird thing was that in Washington, D.C., instead of coming up with actual women's health services, it was coming up with a couple of these what are called in the States pregnancy crisis centers, which are really anti-abortion, counseling in air quotes, that are trying to convince women not to terminate their pregnancy. So not the sort of thing you would expect a savvy search to do. So she posted this. Even after she posted it, within her comments and within her thread, so other people are saying, "Hey, where I live, there's no problem. I'm in Austin, and I search. I get exactly what I would expect when I ask Siri, for Planned Parenthood or or abortion services or contraception or women's health or whatever." And other people saying, "Yeah, I see something similar." So it was not clear exactly what was happening, and of course that got picked up by Raw Story, by Slate, by Think Progress, by Move On, by everybody, and it got blown out of proportion. And it basically got billed as Siri is pro-life rather than there's something weird with Siri search right now. We need to find out what it is.
Which is what TUAW does, and TUAW does that often. You guys actually looked into the story.
We tried. Well, we did, and also Danny Goodman at Search Engine Land did a really good job, and I give him a lot of credit for digging into it. Part of the problem is that as much as we know about Siri in terms of its internals, most of that is from Siri, the first version, when it was an independent company, and really still a lot of it is a black box. I mean, we know it talks to search engines, we know it talks to Yelp, we know it talks to Wolfram Alpha, but how it's prioritizing those results and those search engine queries, because not depending on what you ask, you may not Siri, the back end is making a decision when if you say I feel like Korean tonight, or Siri, I feel like Korean, for instance, the Siri engine is saying that's a restaurant query, and it's going to Yelp, and that's the path that it goes down. But Siri has to decide or figure out what kind of question you're asking. If I say, "Do I need a sweater tomorrow?" that's a different kind of question. If I say,
dispatcher,
exactly. If I say, "How did the Dow do today?" or "How old is Justin Timberlake?" which was an actual query I did, and I got the right answer.
How do you know that already? But okay, we'll leave that.
97.
Justin, we found out something about Mike. You might not share that with everyone.
My wife, we were talking about the age
now he's throwing it on his wife. Not right.
And my wife said, if you if only we had some sort of device we could ask for this information.
Right.
He's almost 31. Anyway, but those are handed off to different tools, basically to different infrastructures. And there, some digging turned up that some of these queries were hitting Yelp. Yelp is really good with local business, but it doesn't necessarily have the metadata that knows that Planned Parenthood is the same thing as abortion services.
Because Planned Parenthood doesn't actually include that, right, in their description.
It may not. Yeah, it doesn't include it in the metadata. It doesn't include it in. There's not reviews. These are not the kind of venues that usually get 4 stars. It doesn't really work that way. So there's a lot of technical depth, but people basically blew right by that and said Siri is pro-life. Siri is not telling women where they can get.
And Apple is pro-life, and Apple's promoting an agenda.
Yeah, which is, I mean, if you know anything about Apple as a company and its relationship to social issues, that's ridiculous. Number one,
their logo was a rainbow at one point.
Their logo is a rainbow. But no, I mean, this happens to be one of those really contentious, hot button issues, and there's no surprise that people got excited about it, and there's no surprise that that particularly people felt like this was something that was being done on purpose. And then, Apple made a statement that this is a search glitch. A lot of people said it's certainly not being done on purpose. So then the question came up of, well, if it's not being done on purpose, shouldn't it be better? Shouldn't it know if you, and the example, and this is where I felt like people were simply misunderstanding the product. The example was, if I can say to Siri, I need to get rid of a body, or if I can say to Siri, I'm drunk, or if I can say these sort of gag searches and get a reasonable response, and the get rid of a body, the fact that it's like, what kind of place would you like to look for? Sewage dumps, car, body shell,
Moat.
like whatever. Yeah, a moat, swamp. So those are very funny, and there were a few people, including Violet Blue over at ZDNet, who said if they paid attention to this enough to create those canned searches, shouldn't they have done something for women's reproductive health? And you have to understand that those are joke searches. They're not intended to be taken seriously, and anyone who's doing them, and I've just inverted myself, anyone who's doing them is assumed to be in on the gag and to recognize it as funny. So imagine if Apple's engineers who working on Siri did try to pre-program something like this around this topic. So you say, Siri, I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. And Siri comes back and says, I found 5 abortion clinics near you.
Yeah, that would get headlines.
So we'll let that sink in for a second. You can't imagine the kind of headlines that would get. It's an order of magnitude bigger problem.
Yeah.
If Siri does try to be smart about it. And people were objecting to the fact that Siri was saying, is that so? I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. No, that's the right answer.
Yes.
It might not sound right, but the right answer is, I can't help you with that.
Which she says a lot to a lot of different
Which she says a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The wrong answer is, I found 5 abortion clinics near you. That is, I guarantee you, the wrong answer. I don't care what the query is.
Well, it would depend on, I guess, exactly that. What exactly would be the query? If you're saying, I'm, pregnant and I don't know what to do, you would think that just because medical information is so very important that Apple would have spent a little bit of time to make sure that if you happen to ask Siri a medical question, you would get a well-rounded range of answers. I think that is something that they should have probably thought of, because where do we go to first when we're sick or ill? We go to our phone. Like, we might Google it, but having Siri there, especially if you're ill and you're not able to type, would be helpful in order to have that. Now, it should be a range of responses, but if you would query something specific like, Siri, where can I get an abortion? Now, taking away all of the, if you're pro-life, if you're pro-choice, wherever you so may fall, you would expect that it should be able to either say, you know what, I don't know, let's go to Wolfram Alpha for this, or, say something else, not something that would actually not give you exactly what you're expecting. Now, it's a beta, and if you know already what Apple's doing, they didn't do it on purpose. But
Yeah.
it is a little bit of something they should have taken a little bit of a better look into, because it's medical and it's important.
I was going to say, I agree with you that they should have taken a better look at it, and that the flip side of it is people saying, well, if Siri can find escort services or Siri can find strip clubs, how are we really being well-rounded and respectful if we're not including this? The challenge
I guess most of the people that are programming the things into Siri are probably not pregnant women or women that are like, you can just probably see where
they can tell you which bars to leave phones in San Francisco, but they can't tell you.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. They might be getting
dudes.
drunk and or committing crimes. Yeah.
They might be bail bondsmen. It's true. Well, but the other point, and this is actually important for other applications on the phone, not just Siri, but medical information is a really dicey subject for search engines, for virtual assistants, for whatever. And the reason is that there's liability attached. This is an app called Itriage, which has been out for a couple of years now. And one of the things it does is if you say, I'm looking for urgent care centers, or I'm looking for an emergency room, not only will it find the closest, but it'll also check waiting times in certain health systems. And it will tell you, you know what, you may be 5 minutes closer by car to this one, but the waiting time at County General is half an hour, and the waiting time over at Montefiore is only 5 minutes. So
how do they update the amount of waiting times? Are these people that are actually in the rooms that are sending information?
No, they're tied into the dispatch systems for certain hospitals and certain health systems. It doesn't work everywhere. It mostly works in, well, the last I talked to them was about 6 months ago, and it mostly worked in Florida and Colorado. But they are expanding it. So they have that information, and they're relaying that information. The problem is, if that information is wrong, and they give it to you, and it's wrong, and you make a decision based on what iTriage told you, and something bad happens, you don't get there in time, whatever, you have to have your arm amputated. I don't know, but there are sequelae, there are consequences to giving medical advice, just like there are to giving financial advice. I mean, you can't ask Siri for stock tips, and you can't ask Siri, what should I do with my 401k? And that there's a good reason for that, because Siri is not in a position to give you that information with any sort of degree of confidence.
Siri, what are tomorrow's lottery numbers?
Exactly. Although that would be awesome.
We'll ask the Australian Siri. It's in the future.
Oh, why didn't I think of that? But what you can't do, you can say to Siri, I hurt myself, or I'm bleeding, or I need a doctor, and that will work. If you say to Siri, I have cancer, or I have schizophrenia, Siri is not going to give you. Siri should not try to give you information. Siri should say, you need to talk to a professional.
But this, again, is a little bit different. It's just because you're asking for, just like I would be asking for a restaurant, I would be asking for a certain type of clinic. I don't think that really falls under the same amount as giving medical information. I've already made a choice I ask specifically for that.
That goes back to the parsing engine, I think, that Mike was talking about, and how Apple determines where Siri dispatches those calls. There was a really interesting article up about, because Apple released Siri as a beta, and some people have taken issue with the fact, how dare Apple release something as a beta? That's not Apple-like. Apple cooks things to perfection. They simmered the iPhone for 5 years before releasing it. Apple doesn't test fire on live humans. But the article the article was actually really interesting, because it was someone who worked at DARPA and someone who worked with this kind of technology. And he was saying that the only way to get this right is massive amounts of data, is just throwing users at it. If you have 8 people with a Cupertino accent in a small vault, you're not going to get good results. But if you have 10 million, 20 million people hitting it from different parts of the world, even only a few countries, it sounds like this is exactly the way you'd want to stage a voice recognition rollout.
But the difference between that and, say, it's fine that it's in beta and there's a lot of people that are going to be testing out different things, but it's actually not going to change the amount of data that they can change in their database center at an extremely quick rate, in comparison to something like Wikipedia that was able to go skyfire because it was open to the public, has all of the great parts of being open to the public, and all of the...
You mean Apple's a bottleneck? The speed with which Apple can parse the data is a bottleneck?
Exactly.
I agree with you to a certain extent that they can't iterate quite as fast, but any voice recognition technology in particular, and the poster that was talking about this was talking about a bunch of different examples, whether it's AT&T's directory service assistants or Google's audio search or whatever. It depends on a corpus of voice samples, and more than that, depends on a corpus of voice samples that the engine got wrong. So when Siri gets something wrong or doesn't understand it, every one of those is fuel. It's grist for the mill for making it smarter, making it more savvy and more accurate. And that post was, I think, 100% spot on that it is not possible to roll out a voice technology at scale without being able to test it and to gather that kind of data from huge numbers of people and a lot of people using it. The problem is not technology, because I think there's no question that you have to do that to make it work right. And Apple had the advantage of buying something that had already been through a couple of iterations of that in the original Siri.
Right. Yeah.
The problem is you can't market it that way. You can't sell people a $200 or $300 phone and say, here's the marquee feature, and here's the deal. You're going to help us make it work right. And for the privilege of helping us make it work right, you get to pay us $200. It's not a successful marketing strategy.
Yeah.
So the fact that Apple is taking this product that is beta and bannered as beta and marked as beta on the website and building a huge television campaign around the fact that it is magical, and not mentioning, by the way, in the course of the television campaign, that it doesn't actually quite work yet. That's where the cognitive disconnect is, and that's where people have a problem basically saying Apple should have baked this all the way before they released it. Well, there is no way to bake it all the way before releasing it, but if you're going to do that, you might want to let up off the throttle a little bit in terms of marketing it in this way. It'll market itself. We all know that Siri is marketing itself very effectively. Stephen Colbert and Jay Leno,
Robin Williams,
and everyone's doing the work for them. So that's not the problem. The problem is not setting expectations correctly for the market. And then you do run into these edge cases. You run by the way, Georgia, I completely agree with you that if there's a specific search you're saying, show me X near me, you should get whatever that is. There's no question in my mind. I just wanted to make the distinction between generic medical advice and specific search.
For sure. And
so go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that we have a running joke here, Mike, that when when I started that, if they're having a problem with running that application, they should just hire more developers or more this and that. Well,
George has answered everything. Throw developers at it.
I haven't said that in
No. Not since we got the email after she said that the first time from developers.
Oh, yeah. Poor developers were like, no, we can't.
And anyway. She almost said throw designers at it last time, but she pulled herself back at the last second.
Exactly.
And how does one throw designers? Is there a trebuchet?
A small Angry Birds catapult.
Yes. A lot of bodybuilding. Apple actually is hiring more Siri engineers to expand the API and other features of Siri. So they are trying to, I guess, expand the bottleneck so that they can make changes faster and keep Siri ahead of the curve. Because, yes, now everyone is working on.
Well, they all said they don't want it. I mean, like Google's Andy Rubin, and I think Microsoft said they don't want that kind of technology, which means they got everyone in their company working on it.
Exactly that. And that'll be a really long beta. You think Siri's in a long beta? We'll wait.
It's interesting though, because I think the thing about Siri that always appealed to me, Mike, is the kind of promise. Like you can see what Apple managed to do. Like they've got an entire widget system, like a second UI built into Siri for the iPhone, and they do only a few. Like they'll read SMS, but they won't read email. They won't be able to change your settings yet, but you can kind of see the future of where Apple's going with this technology. It's
true, and in fact, we know from people that have started, doing their deep dives into the 5.1 beta or the developer release of 5.1 iOS, and looking at some of those strings and looking at what's happening with the Siri APIs and frameworks, that there will be additional hooks, that they're being built out, and there I go again. They're being built out very gradually, Really because Siri is a whole new universe, and it's not entirely clear how applications are going to interact with it in every case. But there will be more hooks in the next version of iOS. And I mean, developers are incredibly eager to get access. They're frothing. Well, this is like, I mean, if you think about the amount of pent up energy that there was in the developer community before the release of the original iPhone SDK, and the amount of just we can't wait to get our hands on it that was going on there. Now we're going to start seeing that again when it comes to Siri. People are going to want to get their hands on it, keeping in mind that it's still only addressable by a very small percentage of the total iOS deployed base. It's
talking about it being only available to a small percentage of the iOS users. I was all excited about the iPhone 4 jailbreak H1 Siri that came out. And yes, Rene, can you give us a little bit of why you might not want, if you are jailbreaking and want Siri, tell me a little bit about why you may not want to actually go through this hack.
Yeah, there's a couple things that make me nervous.
Which makes me very sad, I'm just saying.
Well, no, there's a couple things that make me really nervous about Siri in particular. So Siri is actually a server-side system. It goes to Apple's server and comes back, which means that you have to either find a way to spoof a legitimate ID so that Apple's server will handshake with you and send back a result, or you have to set up your own server. And both of these have huge drawbacks because if you try to fake out Apple's servers, they will most likely just blacklist whatever token you're using to spoof them, and then you're dead. And if you fake,
and so is the person that you
the
took it from, right?
Token you got,
you're both going down as one.
It's like the early days of push notification fake. They try to fake push notification servers for jailbreak. It was very similar. But if you go to someone else, like if some guy is running a fake Siri server in his basement, he now has access to everything you're putting in Siri, all your contacts, all your appointments.
A fake Siri server in his basement. What a bad idea.
But
how can that even be though? Like, how can you
they're intercepting and redirecting it to People do that for massive online gaming for a while. They didn't want to pay, so they would set up a second, like a fake server, and everyone would game on that server.
But you'd have to get all of the code, no? Like, how would they actually?
You're installing an application. It's intercepting a query that would go to Siri, and it's sending it to their server. But I would never in a million years send my stuff to their server.
The Siri type answers that they would already have, and that's where I'm like, well, how could they even get that? I had thought that it would just be Siri, but without any type of query type actions that would be able to happen.
It depends on the functionality they enable. Some of them are using or misusing nuance to just do simple voice dictation. Some of them are trying to parse it, send it to a search engine, I believe. But the minute I saw other people in the jailbreak community start warning people not to use this, I thought it was just a giant red flag, and we should mention it because some people don't want an iPhone 4S, but they want Siri, and they're going to jump on this, and they really should think carefully about it.
You know when people in the jailbreak community are warning other people, saying, "Don't do this. This is dangerous." That's like the Acapulco cliff divers saying, "Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea."
I wouldn't jump from there.
I wouldn't jump from there. That
might hurt.
Rocky and there's sharp with the coral and ow.
That one, not a good idea. No,
not a good idea.
See, unfortunately, my natural nature is that I'm like, I'll jump and figure it out on my own. Like that's just my natural nature. I do not have that kind of natural
Mel Gibson at the beginning
response.
of Lethal Weapon.
Right. I don't have it for wild animals. I don't really, So I'm like,
fake servers.
Maybe I'll try it anywhere. But I do have a huge feeling about privacy, and I don't like the idea of anyone having my information, even my carriers. So that's an issue for me.
Are we going to talk about carrier IQ too? I didn't want to, but we keep getting asked about it. We want
to talk about it. I mean, I've got a beverage. I could talk about it. I mean, it's it's just what to say. If you didn't already, I'm trying to put this in a way that's not going to sound really, really
sarcastic.
Patronizing. But
go, please do.
If your worry is that your cell phone carrier has all the texts that you send, let me set your mind at ease. Your cell phone carrier already has all the texts that you send. They already have it. It's just there already.
Like Phil Nicholson says, if you ask them, they'll even print it out and send it to you at the end of every month.
Right. I mean, if you want that, but I mean, the concern, the real concern is a keylogger saying, capturing passwords or capturing URLs that you're putting in, and that's a valid concern.
It's not. Okay, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say. I mean, I think the concern is it a rootkit? But Georgia, where do you see the essential problem being?
Right. Well, my issue is not again, Google has all of my information as well. And it's probably a lot more things that are personal to what I buy and what I shop and where I surf the web.
Emails.
And and every single email is on their server if they so wish to go through my dull, boring emails. Really, they need to have more entertaining people. I'm sure they have more entertaining people that can deal with it than I am.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin's email. They don't need yours.
But it's when the carriers might be asked by the government in order to carry it over, and they're holding it for that reason and saying, yeah, you know what, this becomes a debatable thing of privacy laws where I'm uncomfortable with the manner in which they might use my information. Right away, I guess, when I surf the web or when I use my phone, I know that they know exactly where I am.
If you've been Googling how to dispose of my husband's body, you don't want the government to be able to force that to be used against you in court.
For a certain period of time, they're, keeping all of the texts and they're able to do what I'm doing with. But what are they allowed to legally, and what can they get away with sending to whom or whomever? That's kind of where I feel uncomfortable.
And that does bring it back to the carriers. I mean, and it wasn't so much that carrier IQ exists or that it is on these phones. And the demonstration made it look like a keylogger, and they came back and said, well, we're not a keylogger. What we're doing is we're looking for diagnostic codes. But whatever it is there, the question is not so much what can these companies do to monitor your phones. I sort of assume that the government is looking over my shoulder, or that AT&T is looking over my shoulder, or that Apple's looking over my shoulder, or possibly all three.
Persons of interest.
Like you said, I'm not doing anything that interesting. But if I was deeply concerned about it, I would be a little worried about the capability, and then I would do exactly what people have done: is go back to the carriers and exactly what Carrier IQ did. Say, point back to the carriers and say, we're only gathering what they tell us to gather, and go to the carrier and say, well, what are you gathering? What are you trying to pull in? The good news.
And who will you give it to if so asked? And with what type of, is it without a warrant? Is it with a warrant? Do they even matter? There's some things that I find wonderful that they should be able to use what I'm knowing. So if I call 911,
to improve the network, right?
And they are able to triangulate and find out where I am so I can get the fastest medical service. That's something that I want my carrier to be able to help me with. Yes, please, if I call 911, send it to them and help me out when I'm in trouble. But in comparison to other things, what exactly happens where?
The thing that kind of interested me was not so much I think it was again one of these very big link baity stories, but it was the hot potato effect, where everyone tried to distance themselves as quickly as possible from Carrier IQ. Carrier IQ tried to put it back on the carriers, and they were literally throwing it to each other at such an extreme velocity. It became all blurry. But this analytic stuff is something that I used to work in. It was my old day job, and they absolutely know everything about you, and they want to know everything about you. I remember a couple of years ago, I think Mike Schramm from TUAW and I were at GDC in the same lecture hall, and they were telling us about they have these big game networks so that you sign up accounts so that they can tell what level you leave a game at, so they can decide if they need to make it easier or not to keep you in the game longer. I mean, they're doing all this behavioral analytics and customer insight management stuff all the time. And I think one of the issues was disclosure. Like in iOS 5, it's off by default, and you have to actually turn it on before the next button will appear, or leave it off. You have to actually make a choice. It's impossible to set up iOS 5 without you opting into this service. You can opt out or opt in, but it's default opted out. Where some of the phones, it was almost buried away in massive terms and conditions. There was no line item ability to turn that off. Basically, your choice was to get the phone or not. You couldn't opt out of that service. So I think some people felt like it was kind of snuck in there on them. There was a little bit of dirty pool getting it onto their phone.
Oh, there's quite a bit of dirty pool. It's not. Again, it's not the existence of Carrier IQ itself that is problematic to me, but the fact that it was not upfront. that it was as exactly as you said, that it's not, there's no opt-in. I'm not told what's going on. I'm not informed as to what's going on. I can assume, and I think that again, it's a problem of marketing. If anyone had ever marketed a smartphone as the most secure and the most safe, and your privacy is going to be preserved on the HTC Incognito, that would be a big problem.
The
because
HTC
of course
prawn mode.
that would be a problem because it would be a lie. The shrink wrap agreements, or the customer agreements and the T&Cs that people sign as part of mobile contracts, there's a lot in there that says this is the sort of information we're going to collect. And if anyone really read those, they probably would be concerned. Yeah. But I think it's great that it came out. It's great that people are looking at it and that there's awareness. I think we're also at this point on the side of too much awareness rather than too little. But of course, I can say that with confidence because I'm running iOS 5.01.
But also,
what do you mean by too much awareness, if I may ask?
Like when any technologically complex story hits the mainstream media, you then have people that are misinterpreting the information that's being presented to them. So people who are assume that carrier IQ means that that their phone is listening to their conversations or snooping their texts or whatever.
It's interesting how LocationGate was such a huge story because it had Apple splattered all over this, and Carrier IQ, which is arguably a much larger scale than LocationGate, was very minimal impact. It's I think we spoke about this on another show, but when you put Apple's name on it, it sells copies. It generates clicks, so it's much more likely to become a big story.
And I'm not necessarily, again, I'm not saying it isn't a big deal and that it doesn't deserve to be, that Carrier IQ doesn't deserve to be raked over the coals in exactly the fashion they're being raked over the coals.
And the carriers, absolutely.
And the carriers. It's just that transition from tech blogosphere and, general, that transition from tech blogosphere to general interest story is where things get very weird. And there's lots of confusion, and I don't know how to fix that. I mean, George, I think that the question is how do you generate a public awareness without generating public outcry that doesn't match what's actually going on?
Well, I would say that I think one of the main issues is that people were not. I think that a lot of people were unaware of how much data our phone carriers already have and how much data they're already giving away just by surfing the net, that there's a server that someone can actually take a look at, just like when they use email at work and then they're shocked that someone, the system admin can actually read all of their emails. Everything that goes out through that email is being read, which is the same thing that can happen for something else. I think that once you already know that you are giving up that level of privacy, this last step is not as big of a shock. And I think that, that's my thought, is that people probably did not already have a clue that they're giving away a whole bunch of information already. It's just now, where is that information going to be used and for whom, and, what kind of legality is involved in that.
As long as the guy in your house is invisible, you don't worry about him that much.
Well, this is me nodding in complete agreement, because I do think that there is a general lack of comprehension of what information is being gathered, what information is being given away. But people need to be educated to worry about the things that are actually of concern. And a lot of the time, that's not where we end up when these stories hit the mainstream media. I think it was Sean King was mentioning this last week as the story was hitting, that I'm worrying about somebody at Verizon, knowing who I text or what I text, but I'm not worried about handing over my credit card to somebody in a restaurant who walks off into another room with it.
We spoke about that on Zen. We did a whole show at Zen and Tech about safe holiday shopping, which explained just that in terms of internet. Well, Phil Nickinson, our good friend from Android Central, actually went out and collected a bunch of articles that he felt were very reasonably stated on Carrier IQ, and I just put the link in the chat room, and I'll put it in the show notes. But there was a lot of good stuff on it. It does bring another thing to mind. David Barnard from AppCubby did an excellent article because he started to worry about sort of the ideas of privacy, but not so much for him, but more for his children who are growing up in this information age. You know, when I was in high school and I did stupid things, only my friends saw them. But now they'll be up in YouTube and you'll be the Star Wars kid like in 3 seconds. Or,
Yeah.
you know, you used to take a photo and maybe while you were traveling and send it to your husband, and now all of a sudden it's the Apple TV screensaver thanks to PhotoStream. We actually got sent that, Mike, on a previous show. It's right when it came out. That was
Wow.
We got emailed that from a reader almost immediately, showing it off to the in-laws at the time, no less. But you really have to worry. And he took it so seriously that he went and deleted a bunch of photos that he'd kept because he felt that once they were digital, he could no longer maintain control of that content, and there was certain content he'd rather not have. So I know you're both parents. Do you guys have any concerns or just feelings in general about having these connected devices that may be geotagging your photos, where your families are, or just storing that kind of information about you?
Georgia, you want to tackle that first?
Sure. I don't geotag exactly for that reason, which is, you know, in some ways it's kind of nice to know where my picture was taken, but I actually turned it off immediately just because I'm like, you know what? I was fine without it. Why add this one more set of information? Is it really a big deal? That's something that I worry about? Not really, but it's just, again, another thing. I usually, same thing with location services, not really my cup of tea, but I would turn them on if I am, say, lost or I'm using, Find My Friend, which I, of course, can't use.
Or you're on vacation. And you want...
Or I'm on, no, I wouldn't do it if I was on vacation. But if I was on vacation and lost, then I would turn it on for the moment that I was lost in order to have help. And I use my maps, like my map surfaces, which, yes, is telling me where I am right now and where something else is. And I feel comfortable with that. But, you need to just, I think that once you're aware of what it is, what the risk is, it just lowers your sense of anxiety. We are mostly anxious about the unknown and not understanding the manner in which something works and how much of a risk it is. And with news media sensationalizing something that, I'm actually very concerned about privacy and what I share. But once you're aware of where you're already sharing information and how it actually can be used, it will lower your anxiety and you feel a little bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah. My reaction is largely along those same lines in terms of awareness and concern. And I apologize that I went SD there all of a sudden. I don't know quite what happened. Skype is funny that way. But I don't turn off geotagging on my photos because I live in a large urban area and the geotagging is not so precise that I have to really worry about people pinpointing me or my kids. One thing
sorry if I may ask, Mike, but would you use like any of the location-based games or like Foursquare?
I use Foursquare. I use Path. I just actually started using Path today. Come to think of it, I will location tag my Instagram photos. I'll location tag my tweets on occasion. For my own location, there are times when I don't want it to be public, and that's usually work related or client related. And there's times when I don't care, and I enjoy Foursquare. Foursquare has done great things for me in terms of serendipity, in terms of finding people that I hadn't seen in a long time. Hey, I didn't know you were over there. So that's fantastic. When it comes to my kids and my family, I try pretty hard not to put pictures of my kids on the public internet, with some very rare exceptions. And I try to make sure my kids' names don't go on the public internet because they both have unusual names. And, I'd rather not have that paper trail, location trail. I mean, I'm always sort of in the same place every few days, and anyone who's following me on social media will know that without having the pin drop. But I don't want their actual personalities and their names linked with any pictures that may exist of them on Facebook or what have you. And unfortunately, last year, when my wife was in the newspapers a bit, she was in the New York Times, and the New York Times didn't say anything about our children, not age, not gender, not names, which was great. Then she was in a paper in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which thoughtfully printed our children's full names, including middle names and ages. And it's just like, why did I go to all this effort if if now this newspaper is going to print it. I felt violated, and this is from somebody who like put his location on the internet willy nilly.
And it was old media that did it to you.
And it was old media. God, curse the old media. I just don't know. I don't know whether my level of paranoia is too high, too low, or just right. But I know what makes me uncomfortable, and I listen to that voice. I listen to those those little twinges inside me that say this is not a good idea, and I try to respect those. But most location-based services don't bother me unless unless it involves my kids.
Though when your children reach the age of being teenagers, that might work to your advantage.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, it will.
We're low-jacking those kids.
The elder is agitating for a cell phone and has been told.
How old?
You want me to say that?
No, don't give it.
No, you could just say teen, or is it younger? It's interesting the age, because it's getting lower, like younger age. Both of my children are not even one's not even in elementary school, and they're both have like iPods. So
iPods and iPod Touch and an iPad that they share. I have a second grader and a fifth grader. And the fifth grader is very much interested in having a cell phone. And when we get to middle school and there's the question of going to school independently, I think that's when the cell phone conversation will be restarted.
I think actually for security, a cell phone is a wonderful tool. I think that you have to watch the data and the texting and everything else that happens. But I'm actually kind of pro cell phone for young children. And most of the children that I work with that are in elementary school, by the fifth or sixth grade, they almost all do have, or at least I would say, maybe not all, I would say half do have a cell phone that is with them in the school. Mm-hmm. Probably 3/4 have phones that they aren't able to bring to school, or they don't bring them in worry of losing them. And in some ways, it's a wonderful tool in which you can, if there's a problem, you can talk to your parents. But what ends up happening is that they're also using it for texting, for cheating on tests, and for in the middle of, like doing Facebooking and other things that are also dealing with it. So it's definitely a double-edged sword, but it's kind of interesting to see the way that this type of technology is changing the manner in which we interact. Like my, little one, he sends me messages now. He can't really spell, which makes them even more delightful. But I'm
actually just dispatching my elder one to bed. Go to bed. Go to bed.
You're talking about me, though.
He's going to demand the podcast in a minute.
Yeah, they're like, please let me have a cell phone.
I'm going to have a show next year. I'll show you.
Out of earshot during the cell phone conversation, but now heading upstairs, followed by the cat, apparently.
Nice.
So
we have actually too much to talk about, so we're drawing to the end. I just want to mention that we are doing our traditional end of the year giveaway. Instead of just picking an iPhone or an iPad, we are giving away the iOS device of your dreams. You enter the contest, you will get an Apple Store gift certificate. You can buy yourself, 5 Apple TVs, a couple iPod Touches, an iPhone, an iPad. You can save it for an iPad 3 if you want. Whatever you want, just enter the contest. The details are up on the site. I'll put them in the show notes. Also, today we're giving away Batman Arkham City Lockdown. So if you go there and you enter to win, just name your favorite incarnation of Batman. If you're a Frank Miller guy, or if you're, maybe you like Tim Burton's movies, whatever your favorite Batman stories are, let us know, and you could win one of, I think, 5 or 6 copies of.
We're going giveaway crazy, aren't we? Like, we will actually also be doing a contest for people that want to do their own glass, their own backing of their iPhone. So from Unusual, they're going to be doing their own contest as well with us. So someone will get to do, I think we're giving away a few of them. So you're going to get to upload your own picture and put it on the back of your phone.
All you have to do is go to tippy.com/contest. There's a ton of contests up there for you to have fun with. Check those out. Also go to tippy.com/tips. We have tips there on how to set up secure email for your children, all sorts of stuff. Ali just put up another jailbreak starters guide. If you're interested in jailbreaking, you want to get started. check all of that there. And I want to say a huge thank you to Mike for being on tonight. You are one of the bloggers I have always looked up to, Mike. So it was a special treat for me to have you on there.
I'm getting a little bit clapped. Thank you. Thank you, Rene. Thank you, Georgia. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's been wonderful having you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's always great to get out of our little fenced-in corral and chat with some other folks. So I really appreciate it. And I can see in the chat that some of my peeps showed up. So I want to thank Kelly and John for making the trip over and joining us for the conversation.
And if you haven't heard Kelly and Mike on the Talkcast, you have to check that out on Sunday nights, because it is you always have an eclectic but highly interesting group of people on that show.
I think that's a pretty effective description. I would occasionally go with reprobates who walked in off the street, but I like your branding really a lot better.
Well, you were kind enough to let me on a couple weeks ago, so I can't be too critical.
Let you on? Everyone can come. It's a thing. It's open. Yes. Thank you for joining us. It was great.
Mike, where can we find out more about you?
You can find me at tuaw.com. I am on the Twitters at Mike T. Rose. And those would be my primary outlets. We're hitting the end of the year over at TUAW, so gift guides and all sorts of fun stuff going on. So come on by and check it out. And
you are also you will have the Mac stuff, you will have the iOS stuff, you will have the general cool stuff that works with all of the above stuff. So it is a great source of reference.
Thank you.
Georgia, I know most of the people here already know, but just for the sake of completeness, will you please let us know where we can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at GeorgiaTIPB, and you can also find me on the website www.tipb.com, and of course on Zen and Tech, Girls Gun Gadgets, iPad Live, iPhone Live.
Half the show's on the interwebs.
Something like that.
You can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find me at tippy.com or at mobilenations.com. You can email us at podcast@tippy.com or leave a comment on the website when it goes live. We're here every Wednesday night from 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Our companion show, iPad Live, Georgia, is when again?
Same bad time, same bad channel, Sunday nights.
For all of our podcasts, you can head over to mobilenations.com/shows. You can find Android Central, crackberry.com, Windows Phone, Zen and Tech, Super Functional, Iterate. We got Stock Talk going now. We're going to start an enterprise show, I think, fairly soon. There's just so many shows. If you haven't already, please subscribe in iTunes. Please leave a rating. It helps people find the show, and we always appreciate having more people to talk to. And I want to thank everyone in the chat room, everyone from TUAW, from Tippy who showed up, all of our usuals. Thank you so much. You are the reason we do this. And thanks to the iPhone accessory store from Tippy for sponsoring the show. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, gang.